This is the NQAT Daily, and I'm with Andy Slater from the Barmy Article fanzine talking about United Women. How are you doing, Andy? It's been a couple of months since we last talked.
Yeah, I'm good. It's good to be back at LSV yesterday. We did have a cup match there in midweek, but yesterday felt like the proper return to the season, the first league home match at LSV after the first game of the season was at Old Trafford. So it's weird how, even as an Old Trafford season ticket holder for 21 years, once upon a time, LSV feels like home for the women's team now. So it's surprising how good it was to be back there.
Yeah, there's been an awful lot of chat. What was the stadium talk amongst the, Jim Ratcliffe proposing a new stadium, basically that there would be some version of a smaller stadium on campus in the sort of Manchester City vein, perhaps a resized, downsized Old Trafford anyway. That is one for the distant future, I think. Maybe that will become home for the women's team in the future. Well, so I guess we were a bit negative when we spoke in the summer. A lot of change over the summer, a lot of new players in, a lot of big names leaving, questions about the manager, questions about the ownership, Jim Ratcliffe saying some, well, let's say old man type things about the women's team. But it's all quite positive. The start of the season, 4 wins on the bounce, 3 in the league, 1 in the League Cup. Everyone must be feeling good around the women's team. How's it from a fan's perspective?
It does feel good. I think over summer there was a lot of negative off the field, but the recruitment was actually very good. And,
right.
Even though there were big names that left, there were very good players that arrived. Grace Clinton coming back from loan was, the old adage of it's like a new signing, but it literally is. She went on loan, she did well in the Championship, she did well in the WSL, and she's hit the ground running for United.
Yeah,
we've got Celine Bizet. And even just yesterday, she was through. One touch could have got her through on goal. It was right at our end, and she kind of turned it back and passed it out wide. And initially, it was what's she doing? Shoot! But she put it out to Bizet, who put a great cross in for Turland's header to score the second. And she could have made it 3-3 in the league, but she was more aware than we were. She was more calm and composed than we were, and she knew where her teammates were. She trusted them. She's just a class act. Even without a goal yesterday, she had a big impact.
Yeah, I mean, I think in the summer we talked about how we would enjoy watching her play because she has that sort of Gaza-like quality of being able to run with the ball from midfield, which is always exciting, isn't it? So the women, 3 wins out of 3 in the WSL, no goals conceded, 9 points, so a better goal difference and more points than the men's team. Last time I'll make the comparison because I know it's stupid and unfair, but true also. So scoring goals as well, which is exciting. Almost a completely new forward line, really, with Bizet. Is it Bizet or Bizet? I was never quite sure.
You assume that she's French with the spelling of the name and go for Bizet, but she's actually Norwegian.
She's Norwegian,
I think it's Bizet. I'm not certain. I think it's Celine. Because I was wondering if it was Kellen or Celine. I think it's Celine Bizet.
All right.
I think she'll accept that.
She's come in, effectively replaced Nikita Paris, I guess. Obviously, Mallard signed on a permanent deal, Gazer with a second season. And Elizabeth Turland, who's, I guess, you called her out in the summer and said, hey, she loves scoring goals. That's certainly true at the weekend. Looks like she's really hit the ground running in the team. Yeah,
the first couple of games, she was a little bit quiet. With the size of the pitch at Old Trafford, I thought she was nailed on for a goal on a debut, but that didn't come. Then she looked a little bit hesitant, like she wasn't quite settled. And you always had the feeling that once she scores, it'll settle her and she'll open the floodgates. And then, obviously, yesterday it was a great volley from Bizet's cross, and then followed it up just a few minutes later with the header. And she actually had a chance of a hat trick that was the easiest of the chances. People are saying she should have been allowed to take the penalty, but Maya Letitia is captain, and apparently she is the penalty taker now, so you can understand her wanting it as well. And then she came off, but she had a prime chance for a hat-trick, which she really should have scored. But she scored one, another one shortly after, and you now feel that if we can find her, and she's feeling it, then we'll never be short of goals.
Right. Marc Skinner called her out afterwards. I guess unfairly made the comparison with Erling Haaland down the road, which I don't think is super helpful. But hey, if she scores anywhere near that kind of strike rate, everyone's going to be really happy. Have the other new players settled in? Because it was 5 or 6 signings over the summer. We talked about Grace Clinton, Turland, Dominique Janssen, who's played a bit in midfield as well.
Yeah, I think Janssen is going to be key. She's quiet, but I think she's going to be key because Katie Zellen was always playing in that 6 role, and it really wasn't her position. She should have always been further up the pitch. But Janssen in that role, she's played in defence, she's played in defensive midfield, so she knows the drill in that area of the field, and she's one of the more experienced players we've signed. We've got a very young squad, but she's relatively more experienced, and she's been around Arsenal, played at Wolfsburg. She knows what she's doing, and I think she's a huge impact on the team. So I think she's not going to set the world on fire, but she's going to be, I think, the main one to allow the others to do what they can do. Great to have her sitting behind Grace. I'd like to see Grace a little bit deeper and picking up the ball and running forward rather than as a split 10 with Toon. But Nalson's in there as well. Nalson is a steady player now and quite regular. But yeah, I think we're yet to see Anna Sandberg at left back. We've got Gabby George back, who plays there. Yeah, she missed most of last season shortly after signing. But yeah, I think Jace is going to be a different beast this time. I think she's had a season to settle. She's struggled with the language, but I think having a season under her belt, I think not like a new signing, but I think she's going to benefit from the players around her more, and I think she's going to have a lot more involvement and a lot more confidence, which she showed up in the Old Trafford game. But yeah, Turland is the one, but I don't think there's been a bad signing. I don't think there's been a bad signing for a while. There's been unpopular signings that have turned out good, but I don't think there's even an unpopular signing this summer. Yeah,
it'll be good to see Anna Sandberg. What is it with United and injured left backs? It's afflicted the men's and women's teams.
One club.
Mad. All right. I want to talk a little bit about the fan base, because you said return to LSV at the weekend. Of course, the opening game was Old Trafford against West Ham. Good victory. Kind of poor turnout, though, which was a bit disappointing. I mean, is this on the club for not marketing it well, pricing, time of day? Are we just hitting the ceiling with the potential for the women's team fan base?
I think there's a lot of factors at play. I think you've got we're not coming off a big international summer, which in women's football certainly has an impact on domestic crowds. Mary Earps has gone, which football-wise, I'm not disappointed. I think we got Fallon Tullis-Joyce 12 months ago, and I'd have been ready for her starting in January. Once the January window closed, I'd have been ready for her starting. But marketing-wise, a big name Lioness is always going to draw fans to come. You've also got the league form last season. Yes, we were FA Cup winners, but within a week of winning the FA Cup, we got battered 6-0 by Chelsea. Now, there's mitigation to that. We were probably still hungover. They were giving the famous Emma Hayes a big send-off and clinching the league. It's embarrassing, but you can explain it. But people who are coming for the event, who might have been to that match, are probably going to be more hesitant to come to the next Old Trafford game. People say it was West Ham, why play West Ham, but our first game at Old Trafford in front of fans was against West Ham, and I think we got 30,000. So it's not the opponent. I think it's lack of lionesses, which, again, for somebody who goes because I'm a season ticket holder, because I want to watch us play football, it doesn't bother me. But for the fans that I think the club are trying to
fan
reach,
base, yeah,
and I think that's what needs to change. I think the history of United has been making legends rather than buying legends, and I think that's what the club needs to target now. Invite fans onto the journey with this young squad. Join these young players on the road to stardom, and build the long-term club loyalty, which is the bread and butter of men's football. But women's football is more about England at times and player FC. And I think the marketing needs to cater for that more. Try and bring people in as Man United fans instead of look at this superstar we've got. Yeah,
interesting. Going back to Mary Earps, I mean, I think there was valid criticism of her last season. Form seemed to drop off a cliff, and she's found herself on the bench at PSG as well. So perhaps that big move hasn't quite worked out, although I don't know whether anyone will blame her. She's getting paid €1 million a season, apparently, which in women's football is really good. So, yeah. Credit due to, I was remembering his name, Harvey Bustle, who has been at the club a couple of years after joining from Millwall, head of player recruitment for the women's team now. Seems to have done a really solid job with, although perhaps not shopping at the very top end of the women's market, which is still a sort of fraction of the size of the men's, given the finances involved. But it seems to have pulled a few rabbits out of the hat and like got quality into the squad now. Lots of changes over the last 2 years, but feels like a good quality squad. Do you think with what with Arsenal struggling and people asking for Jonas Eivel to be fired already, you think the sort of third place is up for grabs this season?
I think even without Arsenal struggles, we should be looking to reach that level again. We did a season ago, and then as a club, we fell off the cliff as far as league form goes. So even without Arsenal struggles, we should have been looking to reach that level again and break into that top 3. Arsenal's form obviously makes it a little bit more achievable. We don't want to get into third place because Arsenal have declined to our level. We want to reach that level anyway, and be pushing not just for top 3, but knocking on the door of, like we did, the top 2, ago, and then going for a title charge. Is it realistic at this point? Probably not, but that's where the aim should always be. But Arsenal's form certainly makes us you think it is prime opportunity. Liverpool last season finished above us. They've not started the season well, so you're looking at that kind of top of the second subdivision, and we've started far better than Liverpool have.
Yeah,
we've started better than Arsenal have. Arsenal have had to play Chelsea, of course, but they've dropped points at Everton, which that was us last season, and we picked up the points there without blowing them away this time. I think that's what we've done so far this season. People will say, look at the opponents we've played, and you can't get too excited, but these are games we were dropping points last season.
Yeah.
So it is an improvement, and it'll be a big test when we come up against the first big team. We've got Arsenal in November, and we'll see where we are directly against them at that point. We'll see which Arsenal turns up. We'll see which United turns up. But I think that'll be a game that people are really looking at to say, what can we do against the teams that we want to be challenging?
Yeah, really big test in a couple of weeks' time, isn't it? Just after the international break, I think, isn't it?
Yeah, early November.
Because the game against Chelsea was postponed recently due to Chelsea's Champions League fixture, it seems a bit odd, that very short notice postponement. So there's not signs of things to come. It's the WSL is pretty professionally organised, so that was a bit of a cock-up. But yeah, the Arsenal game would be a big test of where United are, where Arsenal are. Maybe could get the Arsenal coach fired. It's amazing. Arsenal fans, men's, women's, youth, whatever, they just love a good whinge, don't they? I know it's all football fans, but they really love a good whinge.
Yeah. It is. I think women's football Twitter does kind of become a bit of a curtain raiser when Arsenal get a bee in the bonnet about something. They do take it to the extreme, and pretty much anything they can complain about, they do take it to the ultimate extreme. It's like it's not just the extreme for Twitter; it is the extreme. And it's often enjoyable to watch.
Yeah, very good. And then before we go, let's chat about Marc Skinner. I mean, he's not been universally popular with United women fans. I mean, he wasn't really when United 2 seasons ago were doing all right. And there were quite a few whinges and complaints. I mean, I asked around a few people. I think the feeling was that he wasn't really that well liked by the squad either. Do you think, given the good starts of the season, there's an uptick in how fans view him, atmosphere in the squad's going well?
I think there is an element that will never forgive him for what they perceive as what he's done wrong, which I think the stuff about the squad harmony, I think it's blown out of all proportion. There's a lot of things been accused which are just ridiculous and dangerous for people to say. When if they just commented on his qualities last season, they would have had valid points on just talking about the football. And I think that's where sometimes fans kind of discredit themselves by taking it to the extreme when there are really valid points about whether he is good enough. Now, we've had our best ever season under him. We've had our worst WSL season under him. And now we're going into a season which we've started well with a very, very good squad. He's got the 1 year extension, which tells you that it's not a full-on decision that he is the man for us. It's a case of, why change things now? Let's put the structure in place, give him a year, see what he does in this year, and see how it goes. So why I wouldn't necessarily have kept him on after last season, without the context of knowing who's available, just on the basis of his performance or the team's performance, I wouldn't have been desperate to see him stay. But once that decision was made, if he can replicate what we did 2 seasons ago, then that is beyond where we expected to be that season. So it's, people talk about the departure of Martin Hall, and if that's the case, fine. If he's what made us that good, the job is to replace that in the coaching structure. It's about the coaching setup as a whole rather than just Marc Skinner. And that's part of Marc Skinner's responsibility, to get the coaching set up right, not just the team, but the coaches under him doing all working the same way, aiming for the same goal. And I think that's what he should be judged on.
Yeah.
If that's what we're so dependent on, then that's Marc's job as well. But I think he'll always be unpopular with some, because people like to stick to their opinions no matter what evidence is put in front of him. But it is about how good he is as a manager, and he's shown that he can be very, very good, and he can be awful.
Yeah.
So we want to pick up the good again and get it consistent.
Well, he did some brown nosing recently with about Omar Barada and Dan Ashworth, saying they're super involved. So maybe that'll get him a new contract. But you're right. The real thing will be results, won't it? And if he does well, then he'll get a new contract. And if not, they'll make the changes that are happening throughout the club. All right, Andy, where can we find you, and where can we find your newsletter? You can find me on Twitter or X or whatever you call it these days as SL8R7.
There's a link in the bio, a link tree, which has some information about the fanzine. It's got a link to buy it. There's a link to a Substack newsletter on there, which I don't post consistently, but it will always be the first place you'll hear about new issues, new things coming out with the fanzine. Some online posts which aren't for print but to go out digitally. Some archive stuff in there. In the most recent issue, I interviewed the 4th ex-United player that I've done, and that's ex-United from before 2005.
Okay,
so players who played for United, ladies as it was, from right back to the 80s. So there's some good stuff there. Some the real history which United kind of ignored when we reformed. These girls weren't the first. We have a rich history in women's football as well as men's football, and you can read all about that. And there's more to come, more ex-players. So yeah, get involved. If you want to read about it, that's obviously it's there for reading, but it's also there for writing. So if you've got something to say about United women, get in touch and write for it as well. All opinions are welcome, even if I disagree with them.
Very good. Thank you, Andy. We'll catch up with you hopefully later in the season just to check on how things are going. Touch wood, the good start continues. Everyone, I really appreciate watching. Hit the subscribe button if you want to get our new videos. And thanks a lot. Have a great week.